I never imagined that a vacation at my grandfather's farm would turn into such a disturbing nightmare. When I got there, he greeted me with a big smile, showing me every corner of the property. Everything seemed so calm and peaceful, until he took me by the arm and said in a serious tone, "My son, there is something you need to know. Don't leave your room in the early hours of the morning, much less outside. What do you want? Whatever you hear or see, don't you dare leave this room. Do you understand?" I was confused and scared by such a strange recommendation, but I decided not to question my grandfather. I thought maybe it was just superstition or something. After dinner, he took me to my room and said, "Sleep well, my son. We have a long day ahead of us tomorrow." As soon as he left, I threw myself on the bed, exhausted after the long journey. Despite being tired, I couldn't fall asleep. Something bothered me, a feeling that there was something wrong on that farm. I heard strange noises coming from outside, but I was reluctant to leave the room, remembering the warning he had given me. It became increasingly difficult to keep my eyes open. I fought against sleep, but eventually I gave in and fell asleep. I'm not sure how long I slept, but when I opened my eyes, the full moon was lighting up the room. Something didn't feel right. An unsettling silence hung in the air, as if nature itself was holding its breath. I sat up in bed, trying to understand what was happening. It was then that I heard a noise outside, in the hallway. It was a muffled sound, as if something was dragging its feet. My heart raced and my body froze. My grandfather had warned me not to leave my room, but curiosity and fear consumed me. I stood up slowly, approaching the door. I knew I should go back to bed, but something compelled me to investigate. My body shook as I gripped the handle, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Slowly, I opened the door, peering into the hallway. There was nothing. Everything was dark and silent. Taken by a strange courage, I decided to leave the room and explore the farm. Maybe my grandfather was just playing with me, trying to scare me. I needed to find out what was going on. I walked down the hallway, my heart racing. Every step echoed like thunder in my ears. I reached the stairs and went down slowly, being careful not to make any noise. As soon as I stepped downstairs, I noticed the front door was open. I felt a chill run down my spine. My grandfather had warned me not to leave the room, so why was the door wide open? I hesitated for a moment, but my curiosity was stronger. I approached the door and looked out. What I saw outside left me paralyzed with fear. The night was dark, lit only by the moonlight, but in the middle of the courtyard, there was something that made me freeze in place. A tall, slender figure moved slowly, as if gliding over the ground. His movements were unsettling, almost supernatural. My whole body shook when I realized that this creature was not human. I wanted to scream, to call my grandfather, but the words stuck in my throat. All I could do was watch, horrified, as this sinister being approached the house. My eyes couldn't look away from that terrifying scene. As the creature got closer, I could see its details more clearly. Her skin was pale and translucent, as if it were made of ice. Its eyes were hollow and lifeless, and its mouth opened in a terrible smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. I took a few steps back, trying to hide, but I knew it was useless. That supernatural being seemed to have the ability to feel me, to find me. My whole body shook with fear, and I prayed that this was just a nightmare. Suddenly, the creature stopped and turned towards me. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I could feel his presence penetrating my soul. It was a terrifying sensation, as if that being could read my thoughts and my worst fears. Without thinking, I ran back to the room, closing the door behind me. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it was going to jump out of my chest. I huddled in the corner, praying that creature wouldn't find me. The minutes felt like hours as I hid, terrified, in my room. I no longer heard any sounds coming from outside. The silence was deafening, making me even more scared. My mind was working overtime, trying to understand what had happened. That creature couldn't be real, it was something straight out of a nightmare. Did my grandfather know about the existence of that being? Why did he warn me not to leave the room? Little by little, fear gave way to anger. How could my grandfather leave me in that situation? I was just a kid. I didn't stand a chance against that horrible thing. I decided I needed to get out of there as quickly as possible. Maybe if I could get to the car and leave that farm, I could escape this nightmare. I took a flashlight, turned it on, and slowly opened the door, looking around. The hallway was empty. I took a deep breath and started walking towards the stairs, praying I wouldn't encounter the creature again. I walked down the steps carefully, my heart beating out of control. When I got downstairs, I noticed that the front door was closed. I ran to it, but it was locked. My panic only increased with each passing second. I tried other doors and windows, but they were all blocked. I was trapped in that house, at the mercy of that abominable creature. Desperate, I went up the stairs back to the room and hid under the bed, praying that that being wouldn't find me. Tears streamed down my face, and I cursed myself for disobeying my grandfather. I can't tell you how long I hid under the bed, shaking with fear. It felt like hours had passed, but maybe it was just minutes. The silence was distressing, broken only by the sounds of my racing heart. Suddenly, I heard a noise coming from the hallway. My entire body froze, and I held my breath, praying I wouldn't be found. The steps approached, slow and heavy, as if that creature was dragging its feet. As the footsteps came closer, I noticed that the bedroom door was opening. My heart was beating so hard I thought it was going to come out of my chest. I huddled further under the bed, praying that the being wouldn't find me. Then I heard rustling next to me, and a shadow fell across the ground. Slowly, that hideous creature lowered itself, its hollow, lifeless eyes staring straight at me. His sinister smile and sharp teeth left me paralyzed with terror. I closed my eyes, praying it was all just a nightmare. But the presence of that being was so... Then I felt a cold, bony hand touch my arm, and a deafening scream escaped my lips. I struggled, trying to free myself from that grip, but it was useless. The creature pulled me hard, dragging me out of my hiding place. When I finally got out from under the bed, I looked at that horrible face, so close to mine that I could feel its icy breath. Those dead eyes stared at me with an intensity that paralyzed me. I could feel death approaching, as if that creature was going to suck out my soul at any moment. I tried to struggle, but it was useless. The grip of that cold, bony hand was relentless. I felt myself being dragged by that sinister being, while my screams echoed through the farm's corridors. I passed through rooms and corridors until I reached an old and dusty door. The creature pushed her away easily, and we were pushed into a dark, cold room. Once my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could see that the place appeared to be an abandoned basement. There were cobwebs in the corners, and the air smelled damp and rotten. The creature threw me to the ground violently, and I cowered, shaking with fear. She then walked away, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there, alone, trying to understand what was happening. After a few minutes, I heard a noise coming from a corner of the basement. My heart raced, and I prepared myself for the worst. To my surprise, the person approaching was not the creature, but my grandfather. He approached me, his face serious and full of concern. "My son, I warned you not to leave the room," he said, his voice low and serious. "That thing can't see you, can't feel you. You need to stay here, hidden until dawn comes." I looked at him, confused and scared. "Grandpa, what is that creature? What's going on?" I asked, voice shaking. He sighed deeply. "That is not of this world, my grandson. It is an evil entity, a shadow from beyond. It comes every night, and can only be seen in the light of the full moon." My grandfather looked at me seriously, his eyes full of concern. "You need to stay here, hidden until dawn. That creature can't see you, can't feel you. Do you understand, my son?" I nodded, still stunned by everything that was happening. My grandfather then got up and walked to the other side of the basement, where there was an old, dusty box. He opened it, taking out an object that appeared to be an old Bible. "You need to read these passages," he said, handing me the book. "They will protect you from this evil creature. Don't stop reading, no matter what you hear out there." My grandfather walked to the door, about to leave. "But, Grandpa, Where are you going? I asked, feeling panic grip me again. I need to distract that thing. You stay here, hidden, and don't come out until dawn. He replied with a serious look. Be strong, my son. You will make it. And with that, he left, leaving me alone in that dark, cold basement. I held the Bible tightly, the pages shaking in my hands. I heard the sound of the door closing, and then silence took over the place. For a moment, everything was calm. But then, a scream echoed through the farm, making my heart freeze. I recognized my grandfather's voice, and soon after, I heard the sound of something dragging, getting closer and closer. My whole body shook, and I huddled in the corner, opening the Bible and starting to read the passages out loud. I could barely hear my own words, such was my agitation. Suddenly, the cellar door opened, and a shapeless shadow fell across the floor. My eyes widened in terror as I saw this horrifying creature approaching, its dead eyes fixed on me. I continued reading, voice shaking, as the creature got closer and closer. She seemed to fight the words, as if they were burning her. Then, a piercing howl echoed through the basement, and the creature retreated, disappearing into the darkness. I stayed there, shivering, until the first rays of sunlight began to enter through the cracks in the door. Finally, dawn had arrived. My grandfather didn't come back. I came out of the basement, still scared, and found his body limp in the courtyard, with claw marks on his chest. That image will forever be etched in my mind. The story I just told you is the story of that terrible night on my grandfather's farm, an experience that haunts me to this day, leaving me with nightmares and insomnia. And so we come to the end of this dark story. Or is we really coming? Because now, while you watch this video, be aware of you. These stories are not always on the screen. Sometimes they find a way of us follow to enter our minds. So if you hear a strange sound, if you notice an unexpected shadow or feel that invisible presence by your side, remember, it may just be your imagination, or maybe you have awakened something you shouldn't. If you have the courage, subscribe to the Portal of Horror to explore more dark mysteries. See you next time. Until there, and be careful what may be watching you.